Yo, what time is it? Showtime.
8:46. Like I said. 8:46, what?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New York...
I hit the table.
New York Empoleon's first ever Showdown League. I, Goldo Dragon, will be the coach this season. Dan, roommate, will not. But he is here to help me with my draft analysis video. Now, the New York Empoleon are taking our first foray into Showdown, which means a couple of things that are not something I had necessarily considered before. First off, I can do these battles just online. They're much faster. They're much easier. I don't have to, like, sit down at my desk and record. I can literally just have them wherever. So expect more post-com. Whenever I can, I'm going to try to live-com, but if I, like, choose to have the battle somewhere that isn't necessarily just, like, actively recording, I'm going to do that because I don't need to have my capture card here, which is amazing. Second, these battles will be taking place at level 100, meaning that while I'm used to level 50 calcs, I will be having to do a lot more level 100 calcs. Not hard, just something to keep in mind. And, as a nerd, I actually had to ask the admins of the league if that was true, because I've never done a Showdown League before. Now, you may have seen a decent amount of content on my channel, and there's a decent amount of Draft League content, and Wi-Fi leagues are still my focus, but I figured this would be fun. The APA has asked me to join their first season of the APA Evolution, which is a brand new Showdown League, and it's supposed to be an all-star-esque league, including a handful of big-name players, and Panther asked me directly, so shout-outs to Panther for that request, or not, I don't know if it's a request. But anyway, Dan, would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Hello, I'm Dan. I have been involved in the YouTube channel Player 2 First, which you all obviously know about. I act a lot. I do Instagram videos, and I have just recently joined TikTok. And the most exciting thing I do is this.
Howie, will you marry me? Why? So we could eat wedding cake. Is it chocolate cake? Who cares? It's this big and it got frosty.
So hey, I live right there.
Yeah, so Dan lives...
I live 2 rooms that way.
We live in a 2-bedroom
Not 2 apartments that way. 2 walls that way.
Yes, so we live in a 2-bedroom apartment, Dan and I. We've been friends since 4th grade, so we've managed to make a way for ourselves and find our way back to each other, which is super cute.
Yes.
Now, the way this draft worked was that we had 115 points. Every Mon was put onto a point scale from 18 down to 1, and then we had to pick between 9 and 12 Pokemon to fill out our roster. At the end of it, we had 25 Z points in order to, which were the same exact thing as their tiers, in order to assign those as we so chose to as many Pokemon as we wanted that would fit the 25-point requirement. So, as a competitive Pokemon player, I've done a number of draft analyses. I've done them on the GBA-D League, I've done them on the TBL, I've done them on the UBLN, the ICBA, the IBL, everything, right? I just keep doing draft analyses.
As an extremely casual Pokemon player, I have also done a number of draft analyses, that number being 0.
So, what I have decided to do is get Dan the opportunity to give you guys a brand new draft analysis in which Dan will tell me whether or not he likes my picks based solely on what he knows about them, which is, for the most part, very little. Dan, would you like to describe which games you have played?
I have played Pokemon Silver, I have played Pokemon Gold, I have played Pokemon Red, I have played pieces of Sapphire, Ruby, and Emerald, and Platinum. I have played Soul Silver. I have played Black.
And you watched. You were here for most of my Ultra Sun Nuzlocke. Like,
yes.
You were admittedly in the room for most
yes.
of that. So you did see me play most of that game.
Yes.
So he has that much experience. So what we're gonna do right now.
I have a decent amount of Pokemon experience, just not serious competition.
Yes. Which I think is actually gonna be more interesting for you guys. So the New York Empoleon, as a team, have a history with draft leagues, in which I love drafting, don't get me wrong. But there's 2 things that are very consistent within my team. 1, I will never ever get a draft pick above 8th, which is just a fact. It has never happened in any league. And 2, I will get sniped up the wazoo every single round and never get the Pokemon that I actually want. So that's all on Wi-Fi leagues. I've never done a Showdown League. First Showdown League, Panther asked me to join. I'm like, sure. He's like, cool, come in the server. You have the first pick. So, what do I take with the number 1 overall pick? I'm sitting there, I'm agonizing about it, and everyone is literally like, you've had one mod on your mind that you've wanted to try for a long time. You've never been able to get it because it's always a top 5 pick. You might as well just take it. And I was like, is it really a first overall pick? And they were like, dude, it's not going to make it to round 2. You want it more than you want any of the other normal first round picks, or first overall picks, so take it. So I said, sure. I'm going to grab Tapu Koko. I've never gotten the chance to use it. It is a max 18-point mon, like it's one of the best mons in the format. And so I figured let's give it a shot. So Dan, how do you feel about that being my first overall pick of the APA Evolution draft ever?
I mean, what can you say? Tapu Koko is a classic. You see it all the time. Its type is
Electric Fairy.
Electric Fairy, and I mean, what more can you do than Electric Fairy? It's what everyone goes for. You can have 4 whole moves on it with a PP of at least 5 each, and it's in there, and it can take down some of those Pokemon, right? And you can use it all the time when you're using it.
Sure. So Tapu Koko has this thing that's called Electric Terrain. And what Electric Terrain does is whenever Tapu Koko enters the field, it spreads this like electric terrain across the field.
Exactly.
And for 5 turns, that makes it so no Pokemon can fall asleep. It boosts the power of electric type moves, which Tapu Koko benefits from, and it exists. And it replaces another terrain if one does exist. So, I took a few mons that I thought would benefit from that afterwards. But the second round, I decided there wasn't really anything that I was dying to grab. I needed something that's going to pair well with Tapu Koko and pair well with some of its weaknesses. So I decided to grab Scizor. Dan, how do you feel about this Tapu Koko Scizor start of a core that I'm forming here?
Well, they're definitely 2 Pokemon. But you look at the Scizor and you see the Bug Steel, which isn't the best combination of types, or it is, but it's probably not. But what you do know is that Scizor's a really, really fast mon. You can get out there, you can do the moves that you want, you can set up the things you need to, and it for sure is a popular one.
It is a very popular Pokemon, has been since its debut generation.
I mean, if you in 2.
Yeah.
If you think about Super Smash Bros., one of the best assist trophies you can get is Scizor. Or actually, it's a Pokeball, not an assist trophy. But it just screws up everyone else, and it's the same way in Pokemon.
All right, so to pair off with those 2, I figured, okay, Koko, really solid, but it boosts electric-type moves, right? And so yeah. I definitely want something that's going to be immune to electric-type moves that are going to be thrown my way when people are trying to take advantage of Tapu Koko's terrain. So I was going to get a ground-type. That was my next plan. So I was looking at what I wanted. I wanted something that was going to be able to learn Stealth Rocks, because those are really useful. I wanted something that was going to be a ground type, and I wanted something that was going to pair well with these 2 mons, so not weak to fire, things like that. So I decided with my 3rd round pick, which I got with the wheel, so Scizor came together with this, I was going to grab Nidoqueen. So these 2 came kind of together, right? Like they were able to be just like, it came back to me, and I got 2 picks in a row. So Scizor and Nidoqueen came together. So Dan, talk about the synergies between Scizor and Nidoqueen.
Well, until about 7 seconds ago, I thought Nidoqueen was pure poison type, but it appears it's poison ground. Which is great in this situation, because as Robert said, he was looking for a mon that could resist electric, and what's better than than ground? I could give you a whole electrical engineering lesson, but we're all here for Pokemon, and you know ground resists electric. In fact, there's no effect done to ground at all. I may have gotten a bit aggressive when I said Tapu Koko is a classic. It is, but it's not a real classic. You just see it all over the place. Everyone uses it. It's great. Nidoqueen really is a classic. One of the best when it came out. Continues to this day to be one of the best, and I have nothing to say about how it pairs with Scizor.
Well, so, okay. That's fair. So at this point, these are the 3 Pokemon that I actually wanted. I had managed to draft, for the first time in the history of New York Empoleon, the 3 Pokemon that I actually wanted, which is fair, considering I got 3 before anyone else got 3, which is how that works when you're the first overall pick.
I actually directed a play in college, and I got the first 3 actors I wanted, and I didn't care about anybody else, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's a good feeling. It's a really good feeling. So, anyway, now I have to wait for like 2 full rounds to come back to my 4th and 5th pick, which just is what happens. That's a snake draft. And there's 16 coaches in this league, so long time, lots of Pokemon. I'm worried all the things I want are going to get sniped. And somehow, some way, continuing this trend of being weird because it's Showdown, nothing that I was looking at was taken. And so I was like, okay, which 2 mons do I want to pair off now that like I get 2 and then I have to wait forever and then I get 2 more? Which 2 do I think are going to go next? Now, the two I decided on are two Pokemon you may never have heard of.
I've heard of both of them.
Great. That's surprising to me, slightly. But I decided that nobody at this point had taken a Mon that was under 10 points at all. Just first 4 rounds, you're trying to grab some really solid Mons to form a core of a team, which is totally reasonable. And so I took Hawlucha, which was 14 points, and then I decided to grab Incineroar together as a pair. Incineroar was 9 points. It was a little bit cheaper of a fire type, which was really nice. I didn't have one yet. And I think Hawlucha and Koko it's a very standard thing that's starting to happen a lot more. Hawlucha has an ability called Unburden. If it uses an item, then it gets ×2 speed. And there's an item called Electric Seed, which if there is electric terrain on the field, it pops, you get +1 defense. It's used, so it gets +1 defense and +2 speed, just like that. Just by having a Tapu Koko that has come into the battle at some point within the last 5 turns. So, as we're building out this team, I figure Hawlucha, Incineroar, putting some work in. Do you have anything you would like to say about, the fighting flying, the fire dark, anything else about these Mons?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Do you? You
you see Hawlucha and Tapu Koko together a lot, and that's probably why. But Hawlucha is definitely the name of a Pokemon. Incineroar, on the other hand, is obviously in the latest Smash Bros. And you don't get in there without being solid. And you look at these scores, and you see you have a 9 for Incineroar, but that doesn't take anything away. You still got a very solid fire dark type, a solid fire dark type, among the likes of Houndour and Houndoom, and you can't beat that. So Incineroar and Hawlucha are, for sure, 2 Pokemon that he has chosen.
So at this point, it was sort of like, okay, I've gotten like the main portion of my draft together. I've used almost half my points that I had allocated, 115. So now obviously I'm going to be looking at some lower tiers. I'm not going to be looking at like the high 15, 16 point Mons. I actually only have Koko at 18, and then after that nothing is higher than 14 on the rest of my team. And I thought about grabbing Mega Venusaur, which is a Pokemon I've loved to use in the past, and it was 16 points, and I was like, I still have plenty of points to spare for that. And I thought about a couple other Mons. But at this point, I actually kind of had shaped up the way I wanted my draft to go. I kind of figured out where I wanted to get the Mons that I wanted to fill out the cores that I needed. And so the next 2 Mons that I pick as it comes back around are the 2 Mons that usually go in about round 6 and 7. That's about average for these 2 Mons. And I was the first to pick in round 7 and the last to pick in round 6. So I do end up getting Gardevoir and Ditto, 2 Mons I am very familiar with and very comfortable with in League format. Gardevoir, incredibly strong. We all know and love Gardevoir from years and years ago. And it's just gotten stronger as it got the fairy type added to it. It's just gotten stronger as it's gotten its move pool expanded. And so I've shown in many leagues that Gardevoir is something I'm immensely comfortable using, and very comfortable with the ability to fill in the set I need to fill in. I love its variety of moves. And then, speaking of variety of moves, Dan, would you like to speak about the other Mon that I picked up, Ditto?
Absolutely. So Ditto is unique because, as you may or may not know, it can mimic the Pokemon that it's facing. In fact, it uses a move called Transform.
It uses the ability Imposter to do it immediately. More.
Nowadays, back in my day, I had a move called Transform, and it would, well, nowadays, it has, what did you say?
Imposter.
Imposter. Comes out, it immediately transforms into the other Pokemon, and it can use the moves that they have. So not only does that allow you to take advantage of the Mon that you've just been faced with, but it also allows you to learn the moves of the Mon that you're facing, so you can take that into account when you're using the rest of your team.
Additionally, if you didn't know, Ditto also mimics the Pokemon perfectly. So if that Pokemon has any changed stats, Ditto takes them. So if that Pokemon has used Dragon Dance, if that Pokemon has used Calm Mind, if that Pokemon has used Nasty Plot, Ditto just, I am now also the exact same stat changes as you are. So I'm as dangerous as you were. And you know how many Pokemon don't like facing themselves down? Especially when they are Choice Scarfed. Because now they're faster than themselves. Ditto's always faster. And he has the same boost that they have. And he copies the ability. And some Mons have abilities that are like, if you get a kill, get another boost in attack. So all of a sudden, Ditto's now boosting an attack where the other Pokemon is now dead. Super useful Mon, love it in format, incredibly versatile. Ditto, admittedly, has bad matchups. But the thing is, I take it in round 7. Like, I'm expecting my round 7, 8, 9 Mons to not be, like, coming every week. You know, they're supposed to be really useful in the matches that they're useful for, but not come every week. But at this point, every team, and I believe this wholeheartedly, every team should have a bulky water type. Should have
For sure.
some water
Oh,
type.
yeah,
Water's an
absolutely.
amazing defensive type.
Yeah.
And it's really useful. And so there's a few Pokemon that I was looking at that were of the right amount of points that I thought would be good. I was thinking about Starmie, which isn't super
for
bulky,
sure. Yeah.
but Rapid Spin's really nice, and it's got Recover, and it's got, you know, it can Cosmic Power and be bulkier. I was looking at Alomola, which is just annoying, and it should evolve from Love Disc, but doesn't. And I was looking at a couple others.
And you're always looking at Milotic, but you can't always get what you want.
No. And Milotic got taken very early. And I've used
Naturally.
Milotic. I've used Milotic many times. I didn't want to use all the same Pokemon I've always used.
You gotta shake it up.
Yeah.
Right.
So I decided I was going to draft Vaporeon, which is the OG, the literal original bulky water type. I mean, there isn't a more quintessentially original bulky water type than that.
Right, and you can't get an Evolution without knowing that you've got a solid Mon.
That's true. They all have a really good base stat total. They all have 130 in something and 110 in another thing. I think they all have 110 special attack.
They're all no, but they're all among the tops of their types.
Okay. And Vaporeon, 130 base HP, which is super useful because it learns the move Wish, where it passes 50% of HP to whatever Mon I want it to. So Mons that don't get Recovery, which a lot of my team doesn't, including Nidoqueen, including Incineroar, they don't get any Recovery. So I was like, hey, why don't I have another Mon that can give them Recovery? And to pair with Vaporeon, I decided to grab a bulky Dragon type because, like Water, Dragon is another decent defensive typing. I didn't have one yet. And I also was worried at this point because my only Pokemon that learned Stealth Rocks was Nidoqueen. And so I decided to grab another Stealth Rocking Dragon type in Druddigon. So at this point I grabbed Vaporeon and Druddigon. And Dan, how do you feel about these two mono-type Pokemon?
Well, I mean, it's always bold to take a monotype, especially when you need to prepare for as much as you possibly can. But when you look at just water types, obviously they're very wet. And although you look at Druddigon and you see the name and you think, oh, that sort of sounds like Drudge. It kind of seems like it'll kind of hold you back and slow you down and weigh you down. That's just not the case. And that's it.
That's how Dan sees it. But anyway, weird Glee reference in the middle of this video?
It's the way the cookie crumbles.
Anyway, so the last two... So I have 3 more picks total if I want to, but I only have 10 points left at this point. And the only Mon I've taken that's fewer than 8 points has been Ditto. And the thing about it right now is that I have 25 Z points, and that is actually a relatively important number to keep in mind, because if I want Tapu Koko to be a Z user, the most points that I can allocate to another Mon is 7. So I need a 7-point Mon that is going to be at least a half-decent Z user. Additionally, like I realized I didn't have a whole lot of Stealth Rocking in just Nidoqueen, I realized I didn't have a whole lot of removal. And so I wanted to get one more piece of removal to add to the team. Another 7-point Mon that was going to offer me a defensive utility. And so I decided to grab Rotom. Rotom, regular Ghost, little baby Rotom, not in any appliance or anything like that, which is... There's a just gives and takes to that. He's a Ghost type. Ghost type's great. He's also got a little bit more base speed. Base 91 instead of base 86. It's from all the appliances. Lower defenses, lower attacks, but still a useful Mon in his own right. And with Rotom, I had 3 points left. I didn't have a Grass type, and everyone told me, you're playing on Showdown, take something with Serene Grace, it'll be hilarious. So I decided to pick up the only 3-point Serene Grace Mon, that's a Grass type, which is weirdly specifically perfect for what I was looking for, which is Sawsbuck. So Dan, how do you feel about my last 2 picks? 10 total points. I mean, I was kind of just allocating them as needed, but Rotom, Sawsbuck.
I mean, let's be real. You think of the Pokemon that you see the most, especially in recent generations, it's Rotom. You've got a Rotom freaking Pokédex thing bottom screen BS, right? You see it all the time, so that's gotta say something. Probably nothing, but at least something. Rotom's great. It has all this flexibility. It can be all these different things, none of which he's using. Duh. Sawsbuck, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. You never hear about it.
No, you don't. There's a reason it's 3 points. To be fair.
No. Well, you gotta have something to make the other Pokemon feel good.
And this league, importantly, and this is sort of important, does allow baton passing speed. Sawsbuck gets agility and baton pass. So expect at some point this season for me to decide, hey, it's about time that Scissor's actually fast like Dan said it was. So I'm going to run Agility Baton Pass Sawsbuck. It also, like I said, gets Serene Grace. Do you know what Serene Grace does?
Not even a little bit.
It doubles the likelihood of any secondary effect happening.
Makes sense.
So if I have an attack like a Headbutt, Headbutt has a 30% chance to make the opponent
Flinch.
Yes. Now, Serene Grace, double that.
60%.
60% of the time, my
That's
opponent
more than
is
half.
flinching.
Boom.
So, stab, headbutt on Sawsbuck, super great. Wasn't worried about the fighting weakness. Do you know why, Dan?
No, I do not.
Because Coco resisted, Nidoqueen resisted, Halucha resisted, Gardevoir resisted,
Coverage.
and Rotom's immune to it. So, wasn't worried about the fighting type weakness that the normal type added for Sawsbuck. Wasn't worried about the bug type because you know why, Dan?
Because it also resists fighting. Nope. No, I do not.
Because Coco resisted, Scizor resisted, Nidoqueen resisted, Halucha resisted, Gardevoir resisted, sort of. Gardevoir is neutral to it, and Rotom resisted. So we have all sorts of answers to the weaknesses Sawsbuck adds, and I figured it's a good ground type switch in, which right now I have Halucha and Rotom, which is good, but I might as well grab something that's going to be able to switch into those ground type moves coming at Coco, and Sawsbuck gave me that. It's a decent 95 base speed, which is a speed tier I actually did not have, and weirdly enough, if you look at the chat that I had going with my front office before I started this league when I was told that I had first pick, this team that you see on your screen right now is 100% the team we had prepared. There were 0 snipes the entire draft. This is exactly the team we had prepared. Now that doesn't mean that there weren't some scares. Because
of course.
We did admittedly change some things around. As the draft was going along, I would be like, I want this, no, I don't want that. I wanted Piloswine because it was a good 7-point mon, but it was a bad Z user. So I said, okay, I'm going to take Rotom instead. 2 picks later, Piloswine gets picked up. This happened over and over. I was like, I want this. No, I don't. Someone takes it. I want this. No, I don't. Someone takes it. The only technical snipe is that someone took Jirachi, which I wanted. But there's no way Jirachi was going to make it back to the end of round 2. So I really wasn't worried about it. I was like, I'll take Scizor. It's not a problem. But I did admittedly want Jirachi. But it's fine. Everything else was like, I have this plan, I'm changing the plan, someone takes the mon I had changed out. And nobody took the mons that I had currently on my plan at any point, which is wild. So I'm pretty sure Showdown is some weird Juju. I have no idea. I'm pretty sure that means I'm going to go undefeated. Okay. Actually, let's ask you this question. There's 15 incredibly talented coaches in this league.
Sure.
We play a 12-week season.
Yep.
So we only play 11 of those coaches. Or
right.
12 of those coaches out of 15.
Right.
Or out of 16, so...
Okay.
Yeah, 12 weeks.
15
other coaches. We play 12 of the 15 others.
Yeah.
Now, these are incredibly talented battlers. These are chosen as all-stars for this league. And all of them, I'm pretty sure, have some level of experience playing on Showdown, which I don't. Now, I mean, I play mocks on Showdown. I know how to use the program. How many games do you think I'm going to win?
Out of 12.
Out of 12.
7 or 8.
7 or 8. I mean, I will take, so top 8 out of 16, make it. 7 or 8 wins, that's probably top 8. 6 wins, 6 and 6, that's probably about where the cutoff's going to be. Generally, someone's going to go like 10 and 2. Someone's going to do it, probably. Someone's probably going to be like 9 and 3. There's probably going to be like 2 guys 9 and 3, like right there. And there's probably going to be like 8, 7. 7 is probably where I'm expecting the cutoff to be. So I'll take 8 or 7 wins, that's pretty solid. And
I think the top 2 are going to be 11 and 1 and 9 and 3. There's not going to be anyone who's 10 and 2. It's going to seem like someone's going to go undefeated and they're going to lose one of their matches. Mm-hmm. And either it's going to be early and they're going to come back with a fury, or they're going to be almost there and then everyone's like, oh, they're human. But then no one's going to be close.
Okay.
And it's going to be 9 and 3, and you're going to be like, oh, then okay, all right, there's an advantage here, clearly, but...
Yeah. So going into the playoffs, they have that like distinct 1 seed, like target on their back, but they're also
right. And then you, as this 7 and 5 or 8 and 4, is going to be looking dead into this 11-1, being like, I just got to beat the strats.
Yeah, got to play the game. Now, okay, appreciate the confidence a lot. Now I need you to make a scale, and then rate this team on
it. See, this is tricky because the scale has already been made for me. And I need to either embrace it immediately or ignore it entirely.
Okay. I'm going to give you a scale then. You ready?
Well, no,
I don't know what scale
if we're doing this in the spirit of what this all is, I need to make my own scale independent of real Pokemon knowledge.
Oh, I was going to give you a scale out of 115 points.
That helps.
Okay, I don't know what scale you thought was real.
Well, no, I thought you meant put them in order.
Oh, no. Not like rank each one, but how do you rank this team? Like, give this team like a
as a whole.
Yeah. Pick a scale and give this team a rating out of it.
Okay, out of 115.
Yeah.
Can I give you another range? I gave you 7 to 8 before. I'll give you 88 to 92. Out of 115.
Okay. Care to elaborate? How you came to this number? It doesn't really matter what your logic was. But how did you come to that number?
Not necessarily compared to the others that I can see, but they can. You do have a fairly high weighted average, and the low ones that you have very good reason for having. So amongst their peers, I credit them for having more than 9, 7, 7, and well, I know nothing about Saspa. But the 9, 7, and 7 seem to be more like 10-ish for each of them because they fit into the team so well. And I know that you always have a very solid group strategy. There isn't really, you don't really have weak mons because you have good ways to use them when you do have them. So, despite what the numbers that have already been laid out represent, you have sort of a higher weight. And that's not necessarily to say that everyone else in the league doesn't also have a higher weight, but just taking the mons at their own values
this is like a raw score.
Right.
So I don't know how you'd compare it. How do you rate anyone else's team?
No, and I would have no way to rate anyone else's. But I do know that you have this synergy effect with your Pokemon where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this particular draft analysis. My first ever Showdown draft analysis. I just wanted to have a friend to witness it.
My first ever too. You didn't know that, did you?
Nobody saw that coming.
No one.
Anyway, that might be the title of the video. Nobody saw that coming.
I like it. All right, I'm in.
Well, that is going to be how this goes. Uploads will be... It's on screen. I have no idea off the top of my head when uploads are going to be, or what. I think they're on Wednesdays, but it's on screen, so you guys get to see magically when uploads will start, which should be next week, and we will be playing out 12 weeks of Showdown League excitement. Be ready for the salt and the hacks and the weirdness and the level 100s and the showdowns. I will, like I said at the beginning, be post-comming sometimes and be live-comming sometimes just when I'm at my computer, but I'm not going to only schedule battles for when I'm at my computer because I don't have to, which is the best. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys next week as we continue our APA Evolution Season 1 Showdown Journey. Thank you so much to Dan.
I may be back.
Thank you so much for watching. Take care, everybody. You didn't say anything.
No, I did not.
Thought you'd say something.
Bye!